Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to our special video conference. I know I shouldn't say special in a way that this is extremely out of the ordinary, but it is a little bit different as far as our regular 6-week adjustment. We did want to make sure that we had a chance to do a video conference before the holiday. I know a lot of people like to take a little bit of time off and may not be available. Also, Roxanne at the state office really wanted to be part of our conference. And since she is going to be taking a little time off for maternity leave, we wanted to make sure that she was here and available today. So we did change that date. I do realize Thursday is a little bit out of the ordinary, but hopefully we can all roll with the punches a little bit. We are experiencing, of course, like we do a little bit every time, a few technical difficulties that we're trying to work through. So hopefully you'll bear with us as we kind of get started today. If you would like to see the agenda of what we have today, if you go into the invitation that I sent you on the calendar link in the description tab of this Google Hangout on Air, as they are called, will include kind of a few of the topics that we're going to cover. The times on those are going to be approximate. So I ask everybody ahead of time to give me somewhat of an idea of what time they might need, and sometimes we go a little faster and sometimes we go a little slower. Really, a lot of it depends on you and any questions that you might have. As you're viewing this, if you're viewing it live, remember there is a slight delay in what we say and what you can hear. So if you have questions and they don't seem like they're being answered right away, do know that we try to get to those questions. So remember, if you do have a question, you can go over to the left-hand side of your screen. There should be a question and answer tab. If you click on that, it just says Q&A. If you click on that, you can type in a question and we can address it. For example, Freddie in the Cheyenne office just asked us a question, am I in the right place? And hopefully right now you know that you are and you are viewing this. So any questions that you have, you can type over there and we will try to address them as we go. And then we're just getting the last couple participants on the call with us. I know Danita was going to present. We're trying to make sure that she's on, and it looks like she's just joining us. So Danita, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, sounds good. So we'll just kind of continue along with the agenda. The first thing on the agenda is I wanted to make sure that Roxanne had time to talk to everybody, and she had a few things that she wanted to go over before Christmas break and the end of the year as well. So Roxanne, the time is yours.
Thanks, Kelly. Good morning, everybody. As Kelly and I were planning this video conference, he always reminded me that, you know, as much as we can plan, my little one might have a different agenda or plan. So it looks like he obeyed Mama and stayed put just so that we could go ahead and have this last conference before I head out. So he did really good in that regard. You know, I know that especially in December, we are seeing a lot of families that are coming to us, and they're in need, and they are kind of a little bit more stressed and concerned because the holidays are coming up, and they're thinking about how they're going to, you know, provide for their families and make it a special time for their families as well. And I just want to acknowledge that I know that that's what all of you are seeing, and that these are the types of discussions that you're having with our clients these days. And I really, really, truly appreciate all that you're doing to help serve our clients and help to make their holidays hopefully just a little bit more brighter and kind of put them at ease. So really what you're doing is fantastic work for them, and I want you to know just how much I appreciate it and how much our clients appreciate it. So we are, as a division, there are some positive trends that I wanted to speak to. Oftentimes you get this in an email from me, and I'll do a follow-up email with this information in it. But I wanted to speak to it a little bit more on this conference since we had, it was kind of the perfect opportunity, and we just received these numbers about a week ago. Some of the positive things that we're seeing is For our negative error rate, it was at 4.76 in August, which is incredible. That's a fantastic decrease in our negative error rate, and that brought our cumulative down to 19.8. So we're in the teens now, which is really kind of an exciting place to be. Remember, our goal is 10%, but we're down, gosh, almost 12% from what our last year's cumulative was, which was 31.75%. So we're really trending in the right direction, and on January 1st, or actually it's probably going to be January 3rd, I think, 3rd or 4th, we'll go ahead and roll out the Notices Toolkit, and hopefully that will help us be able to provide the notices in the language that we need in our notices to avoid errors and help us get, bless you, Kelly, help us get to the 10% goal that we want to meet for this year. So we are definitely moving in the right direction, and you guys are doing a fantastic job on that. So thank you for your work. I know that we're doing a lot of re-review of the notices, and we can really see that paying off, which is quite rewarding. Also, our timeliness is at 96.61%. Our timeliness is what we were awarded bonus monies for this previous fiscal year, and right now we're sitting even better than we were last year. So we're just continuing to prove in those regards and making sure that our clients are getting the benefits that they need in a timely manner, which we know is so important to them, and it's just an awesome feat that we're doing. And hopefully, you know, since we received bonus money last year, it's all dependent on how other states perform, but perhaps we're in the running for it again this year, and that's something that's really promising to see. So thank you, everybody, for being so diligent in the work that you're doing and providing a response to our clients in such a timely manner. One thing that we had kind of alluded to that we knew was going to be coming is we did see a pretty substantial setback in the active rate for August. It was actually 20.89% for the month of August, which is the highest that we have on record. So like I said, we had kind of alluded to in a number of emails and a number of conversations that we knew that there was going to be an increase. So that increased our cumulative from 3.63 to 5.21. Remember, our goal is 3%. That was for last year, and that's the goal that we're going to keep for this year as well. We really want to strive to get to that point, and we were really, really close in July. We were at 3.12%. So I know that we can do it. We've proven that we can do it. And now it's just a matter of really taking a look at what caused this increase and what we can do to help avoid that in the future. There were a couple of errors that were pretty high in monetary value, and that's really what drove the error rate up. One of those was an agency error, one of those was a client error, and I think we all know that for client errors, we can explain their reporting responsibilities and make sure that that's very clear, make sure that they understand that, and we can reiterate that to them in a number of times in a number of different ways. But there's also, it is their responsibility as well. So there's a certain span of control that we have there, and we can be doing our jobs well and explaining that to them. But then it also is up to them to provide us with that information. So I think there's some understanding there. And what we're doing for the client errors is I actually spoke to our federal partners, FNS, and asked that they survey our regions, so our region of 10 states, and ask them what best practices they have for reducing client error rates. And we got some good suggestions. One that Andrea Starks is going to work on. She's going to work on a form that might help us to be able to relay the information and the client's responsibilities to them in a way that's really easily understandable, in a way that they can remember to be reporting that information. So we're certainly going to try. Like I said, I know that there's a certain amount that's in our control and a certain amount that isn't, but we're going to try and make sure that we can address what is in our control. There was also an agency error that was a part of our error rate for August. And what we're going to do to try and address that error is, and we're actually going to have a training on this today, is we put the new hire report in Rave so that it is more easily accessible and more user-friendly for everybody to use, to make sure that we are working our new hire reports in a timely manner, and making sure that we are following up on the information that's in those reports, and making sure that that our cases accurately reflect the information that's provided to the agency. So this is more of a message of when these types of things occur. I think that for all of us, there's a little bit of a sense of disappointment, and that's okay, because we worked really, really hard to get to the point that we were at in June and July, and we all acknowledge that and know that everybody contributed to that. But it also means that we take a really close look at those errors, and we try and say, what can we do to help? You know, how do we support preventing these types of things from happening again? So that's kind of the message that I want everybody to take away from that, is that if you have suggestions on ways that we can continue to perform well in our active error rate and in any of our error rates, please be sure to let your managers know so that we can follow up on those and again work towards our goals of 3% for active and 10% for negatives. I think that is all I have to say about the error rate. Well, there is one more thing. Our error rates go off of a federal fiscal year, and so I think it's really important for us to remember the opportunity that we have right now, that we started a new year, and that we can really start off that new year well, and make sure that we're performing in a place where we're not making up for high error rates in the early months of the year, and just showing a consistent downward trend throughout the year. So let's all just make sure that we don't let August get to us, or we don't let it impact our work, and that we just keep on moving forward in a positive manner, because we all know that we can do that, and that we can meet this goal. Like I said, you all have proven it time and time again, and let's make sure that we focus on that, and not on any of these setbacks that we've had, because we've started the year anew, and I think that we can really start off with some positive momentum. So I'll leave the error rate at that. Unless there's any questions, feel free to type those in, and I'm happy to address those. And then for power, we have some really kind of cutting edge and innovative projects that we are really excited about. One is we are working with some colleagues from Pepperdine University, and they are with a nonprofit called BetaGov, and they are doing a random control trial or random control test on our power payments. And what this means is that in the Casper and in the Cheyenne offices, we are going to have some power clients who receive weekly power payments. And we want to see if that helps with recruitment of power clients, if it helps with the retention, because they know that they're not having to wait for potentially a month or a little over a month to get their first payment. Sometimes that's the case for them, and so they have a little bit more of an immediate reward, if you will, for signing up with the program. They still have to comply with their work requirements and their work plan and everything, but this way they're getting payments in a more swift manner, and we want to see if that's going to have an impact on the recruitment of our power clients. And that stems back to a conversation that I had with Carla and Mary in Grable this past summer. They had brought up that suggestion, and so we thought that this was the perfect time to try that, and we have people that are helping us make sure that we're following all of the research and statistics protocols to really make it a powerful tool for us. So Corinne will be conducting some training for the Casper and Cheyenne offices, and we're looking forward to rolling that out January 1 as well. So this new year is bringing some really exciting changes and projects for us. Another thing that we're doing for power is we are looking at trying to go back to the legislature and trying to get past the power bill that did not pass last session, which would exempt vehicles for power eligibility and would allow for $5,000 in assets for power clients as well. So we will keep everybody updated as to whether that's going to move forward in this legislative session. We still need to get a legislative sponsor before we can move forward with it, and we need to see kind of we need to try and estimate what our success rate might be in trying to get that bill through. So once we do a little bit more evaluating, we'll keep everybody updated on how that's moving forward if it does. So those are some good things with power. One thing that I did want to talk to everybody about, because I'm sure that most of you know about this, it's been in the papers. I think everybody probably knows that the state of Wyoming is under a hiring freeze at the moment, which is a direct result of the budget impacts that we're experiencing at the moment. Something that I wanted everybody to know is that when benefit specialist positions come open, we really take a good look at them, and oftentimes we will be putting in what's called an exception request to ANI and to the governor, asking for us to hire for benefit specialist positions. And I think that that is a huge reflection on the work that all of you do and how important and significant it is that you guys are serving our clients. And it shows, because these are the positions that we are going and asking to have filled even during a hiring freeze, because we know that they are so critical to our department and to our clients. So all of you are so appreciated for the work that you do, so much so that we want to make sure that these positions are hired. So we do have that option in those times where it does come up. I don't know a time frame for how long the hiring freeze is going to last, but it is nice to know that there are things that we can do in the meantime. So I hope that puts everybody a little bit at ease. The last thing that I wanted to say is congratulations to Rhonda Farrell in Casper. She will be retiring at the end of December. And she is going to take with her such a great deal of institutional knowledge and great suggestions that she has and innovations, and we're sad to see her go and to see that knowledge go, but we're excited for her and her new journey and whatever it is that she may choose to do in her spare time. So we hope that she has a great time, and I'm sorry, Rhonda, that I couldn't make it to your party, but I'm sure it'll be a good one. So I hope that you enjoy yourself. And I think that's all that I have. I want to again thank you for all that you're doing for our state and for our clients, and I hope that all of you have a very Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year, and since I won't be here, Happy Valentine's Day, and any other holiday that might come up in the next couple of months. So thank you all for everything that you do. And Kelly, I can answer any questions that anybody may have. If not, let's just keep on moving forward. I hope we have a clear vision, and I'm excited about this new year for many reasons, and I'm excited to see where we're at after I come back from a little break.
Okay, thank you, Roxanne. We really appreciate it, and congratulations to you as well. We know that the next couple of months will bring some pretty significant changes to your household as well, so I'm excited about that for you. If you do have any questions for Roxanne, she is going to stay on the call with us even though you might not be able to see her, so that if you do have another question, please just type it out. We'll make sure that we take time to address any of those as we kind of finish up. So next on the agenda we do have Danita Martinez has several SNAP announcements, so I think we'll just jump right into it and turn the time over to you, Danita.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. Good morning. The first thing I'm going to start with is going back to the error rate, and I apologize. I know you're hearing a lot about it, and we know you guys are working really hard and doing your best, and unfortunately what we have to do here at the state office is answer to the feds on our error rate. So the first thing I'm going to go over is our SNAP corrective action plan. The corrective action plan is required by the feds. We have to send it to FNS if our active or negative error rates are above the national average, or if our timeliness rate is above 95%, I believe. The reason I'm not exactly sure about that is because we didn't have to do a timeliness corrective action plan this year because, like Roxanne mentioned earlier, we are really, really good with our timeliness. So I had to come up with a corrective action plan. Well, I wrote it, but there was a lot of help in writing this. But the corrective action plan for FNS, and what they really want us to do is drill down to the root cause of our errors, which is not an easy thing to do. So I'm going to start with our active error rate. Based on QC data, and this was as of May, because the error rate as of May of this year, because that's the most recent month we had the national data to compare our error rate to. So as of May, our error rate was 3.57%, and that was just a little bit above the national average. So that's what the corrective action plan, why we had to do it, is because based on that we were over. And so as of May, we had a total of 18 errors cited, active errors. 13 of those were agency caused and 5 were client caused. So a majority of our errors are agency caused. And kind of trying to drill down, like I said, they want us to drill down to the root cause. So going a little bit deeper into that, the top 2 error causes of our active error rate were wages and salaries, which is a pretty big umbrella, and this standard utility allowance. So wages and salaries, we had 4 errors that were cited to that, and 3 that were cited to the SUA. And drilling down a little bit more, out of our wages and salaries, 3 of those were client caused, and 1 of them was agency caused. So 3 of them were because clients either gave us incorrect information or didn't report information. And then for the SUA, all 3 of them were agency caused. 2 of them were because we didn't look back to see if the client had received LEAP at a different address within the last 12 months, and that's a pretty recent policy that we started to follow. So that's something that's important to remember, is looking back to see if clients received LEAP not only at their current address but at a previous address within the last 12 months. And then one of the other SUA ones was just a mistake of the worker. They didn't put it in EPICS for some reason. So the first part of the corrective action plan is to try to drill down to the root cause, and then to come up with things we're going to do to help reduce the error rate within the next year. And I'm going to send this whole report out to everybody after today's conference. So I'm just going to go over the things that directly involve you guys for the most part. So one of the things we'll be doing is all supervisors will rotate monthly developing a training on a relevant topic or situation that was encountered recently in their office. And then that will be distributed to all of the offices so everybody can see that same training. Supervisors will QA 36 total cases per month, and that's going to include at least 2 active cases per worker per month. And the negatives, let's see. I'm just going to move on, sorry. Each time a QC error is cited, this year we're not going to require the individual training plan in writing. Instead, we're going to have that be more of a dialogue between you and your supervisor. I think you're doing that anyway. So we'll just do that, and we'll eliminate the actual paper writing it out part of it. So you'll talk with your supervisor about what caused it, you know, the same things that was required in the written review of it last year. You'll just talk those out with your supervisor. And then I don't know if everybody knows, but there's an error review team that consists of Roxanne, me, Kelly, Andrea and Jackie, and Jeannie. And we talk about every error that is cited, and we talk about what we can do to help you guys prevent that to happen in the future. And so part of that error review team within the next year will be including the supervisor, so they can come after you guys had your conversation about the error, and they can bring suggestions as well. Any questions about the active error rate? Because I'm going to move on to the negative. Okay, I'm going to move on, but if you have any questions, you can still type them in. And just to point out that as of May of last year, we were at 5.19%. So we decreased a couple of percentage points almost from May to May of each year. Okay, so our negative error rate as of May was, and I just want to point out that we call it the CAPER rate, the case and procedural error rate. That's the negative error rate. The feds always call it the CAPER, so if you ever hear that, that's what that's referring to, is the case and procedural error rate that is also the negative error rate. So as of May, it was 22.86, which was just slightly above the national average. So we had to do the corrective action plan on that. And then compared to the year before, the error, as of May, the negative error rate was 31.75. So we decreased almost 9% within a year on the negative error rate. So that's awesome. That shows that what we did in the corrective action plan last year was probably helping, and we'll continue to do a lot of those things because we're getting the negative error rate down. So drilling down to the root cause, the top 2 causes of the negative error rates was notices and verification process, and this is a little bit more in depth than the other one, so I'll let you guys read that when you get the report. Some of the things that we are doing that are different than what for the active, because a lot of the things for the negative are the same things we're doing for the active error rate. We're going to continue to do the peer reviews of the closure and denial and pending notices before they're sent out to make sure that those notices are clearly understandable, that we're not pending for something we shouldn't, that we're not denying for something we shouldn't, all of those things that you guys are already doing. We're going to continue to do that. And then, as Roxanne mentioned earlier, the notice toolkit is going to be coming out soon, and hopefully that will help with some of the notice issues. So that's all I have for the corrective action plan. If anybody has any questions on that, go ahead and type them in, or like I said, I'm going to send this out to everybody after the video conference. So if you have any questions after reading it, you can let me know. And I just want to point out that this report was sent to the feds and written for the feds. So it's very to the point, and that's just because that's what they like, and that's what we have to report to them, is everything that is very to the point. And along the lines of the root cause and the ideas of how to reduce our error rate, if you guys have any ideas on what the root cause is that maybe I didn't identify, or if you have any ideas on how we can reduce our error rate for the next year, then please let either your managers or me know, or your supervisor or me know, because we really are interested in what you have to say and what your ideas are, because I'm looking at the data and you guys are out there doing the work. So if you have any ideas on that, then please let us know. Okay, I'm going to move on to some policy. Oh,
can I just add? Can I put a nice little bow on top of that? Is that okay? Okay. So kind of to reiterate what Danita said, we know that we're talking a lot about the error rate, and you know, part of that is that we want to have transparency, and we want to make sure that everybody is in the know of where we're at and where we're going and what we're doing to try and address some of these things. And the fact of the matter is that we have goals set for that error rate, because that's how, as a division, our performance is rated or judged by our federal partners. And there's, of course, monies attached to them one way or another, whether it's SNAP bonus monies or liabilities if our error rates go too high. And we also want to be sure that we are providing the right amount of benefits to the proper clients and ensure that they don't have overpayments or that they're not receiving what they shouldn't be, or that they are receiving what they should be. So those are all really important things, but that we want to also make sure that we're keeping in mind that if our active error rate is at 5% right now, that means that we're 95% accurate, that we're doing really good work on 95% of our cases. So that's something that I want everybody to be really proud of and continue to strive to make that even better. So that's something that we acknowledge, and we know that processing these cases, that each situation is different, that it's not as easy as just putting in a simple calculation or putting information into Epics and it tells us what the answer is. We know that there's a lot of work, a lot of deduction that goes into trying to determine eligibility. So please know that we know that, and we understand that, and we acknowledge that you're all doing a great job because of the amount of accurate cases that we are processing. So I want to make sure that we're continuing to stay focused on that and the positive things that we are doing, but also let you know that we're going over this for transparency purposes and making sure that we're communicating clearly what we are letting the feds know are our expectations and how we're going to improve. And I think it's important for everybody to know where we're at as a division. So just continue to do the great work. Like Danita said, provide us with suggestions, because I always tell people nobody wants me working a SNAP case or a power case. That would be a bad thing. But you guys are the experts. You guys know. So we are here to listen and take any suggestions into consideration. So with that, just continue on doing the great work that you guys are doing. Now I'll hand it over to Danita again.
thank you. Can you guys hear me again? It's weird on this end, the way it looks when we switch people talking. Okay, so Rhonda had a question about observing the interviews, and I'm guessing that is coming from reading the corrective action, the corrective action plan, and that is what we did last year. So we are still discussing what we are going to do for this year. We had great feedback. The interviews were going great, so we don't want to require the one per worker per month anymore, but we do want to still continue with that in some way. So that's something we're going to continue to discuss, and then that will come from your managers on how many to sit in on per worker. So Rhonda, if you have some questions on that continuing after this, then please let me know and we can talk about it. Okay. I am going to move on to some policy changes, and like Roxanne and I both said, is that we really, really appreciate the suggestions that come from all of you guys, because you're doing the work and you know this best out of anybody. So all of these changes came from suggestions from you guys. So the first one is that as of January 1st, we are no longer going to have 24-month certification periods for anybody. So all of your elderly and disabled clients that were getting the 24-month certification periods, they, as of January 1st, cases that you work as of January 1st, you'll just give them 12-month certification periods. And the reason behind that, and the reason behind the suggestion, was that the elderly and disabled clients are kind of getting confused once the 24 months comes around. They kind of forgot what they were doing, and they're confused about what the steps are. Do they need to come in? Do they need to fill out a full application? Because at 12 months they just got something in the mail. It's kind of confusing. So that was the main reason, is that the 24 months was confusing. It had been so long since they'd last seen us. And also we were getting some errors on the interim report because we just didn't have the best process down for that. So this will reduce those errors that we were getting because we weren't able to automate that interim report. We weren't getting those back in time. We maybe weren't sending them out. Clients weren't giving us the information we needed when they were sending that back. So this way, every 12 months, we will just interview the client and get everything verified, and I think it'll be easier, and I hope that you guys agree with that. So I just want to let you guys know we're doing away with the whole interim report. So the elderly clients will be seen every 12 months. Nothing happens in between that wouldn't happen for regular simplified reporting clients. The policy will be put into the manual by January 1st. And then we are going to try to get EPICS to program so a period of longer than 12 months won't even let you do it for more than 12 months. But if we can't do that, then hopefully it won't be that difficult to just go ahead and do those 12-month certification periods. Rhonda asked, will we be able to use 12-month certification periods for self-employed? And no, it is only for elderly or disabled clients who are on receiving Social Security and have no earned income. So it's only those ones that have that stable Social Security income, and that's not going to change within the next year, most likely. The clients that are already on the 24-month certification periods, we're going to have to let them finish out their certification period, and then the next time they'll get a 12-month. Dan is asking, the client is recertifying now for January. Should you only do a 12-month certification period? I lost it. Sorry. Somebody else asked something, and so the question moved. Dan, I'll get back to you on that. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the correct answer on that. And then, again, people that are certified right now, we'll have to continue to do it the way we're doing it now. We'll have to do the interim report and let them finish out their 24 months. Okay, I am going to move on to the next policy change, and that has to do with who we include in the SNAP case. So as you guys know, that we were making an exception for children if whatever parent wanted to claim them, as long as the other parent wasn't already claiming them. We really didn't care how long they lived with that parent per month, as long as they lived there some portion of the month. And it was getting really sticky. We were getting a lot of questions and situations, and I was going to the feds quite a bit to ask them for guidance, and they said that they recommended that we tighten up our policy a little bit. And I also called quite a few supervisors and workers to see what your guys' opinions were, and it was decided that what we were going to do is change the policy to where nobody can claim a child unless they have that child for 51% of the time or more. And how the policy reads is provide 51% or more of the meals, but really what that means is if they have the child 51% or more of the time. So no longer will we let dad who has the kids on the weekends claim the child for a SNAP case. We will only let the parent that has 51% or more of the custody or has the kid for 51% or more of the time to claim that kid for their SNAP benefits, and that will be as of January 1st. The other change is the spouse or significant other, the parent, the child with the child in common, who we kind of have gone back and forth on, but now we are going to say that if it's a spouse or if they have children in common, so the people that we normally wouldn't let purchase and prepare separately, we are going to include them in the household if they have no separate residence and reside in the household for any part of the month. So like the interstate truck drivers, the oil field workers, the ones that don't have a separate residence, but they're out of the home they could be out of the home for a couple of weeks at a time. As long as they have no separate residence and they reside in the household for any part of the month, we are going to require that they be included in the household. And that was some feedback that we got from you guys out in the field, that it wasn't really fair that we were looking at the 51% of the time, because of the 51% of the time or the 51% of the meals, because their income is going towards that household most likely. So why not include them? And they could be using the food for when they go out of town. They could be using those SNAP benefits to feed them while they're on the road. So that is also the policy change that will be in there. Jessica asked, for the 51% of the time for children, we take client statement unless there's a concern. And yes, that's correct. You would take the client statement if for some reason you don't think that that is correct, or if you have reason to believe otherwise, then you can call the other parent. You can look at it a little bit closer. If you have any of those, work with your supervisor, your manager, let me know. We'd be happy to help with that. And Brandy's asking if she used the old policy and it gets pulled, is it an error? And all of these changes are going to be effective January 1st. So as long as you apply that policy as of January 1st, then QC will know that prior to January 1st that nobody was aware of these changes, so it would not be an error if you did it the old way. And I'm reading another question right now. Okay, so the question is, I believe, is the way we do it now is if mom and dad are not in the same household, mom has the kid for a majority of the time, dad has the kid on the weekends, dad wants to claim the child for SNAP benefits. Before, the policy prior to this change was that if dad had the child at any time during the month, if that child lived with him during any time of the month, whether it was on weekends or 3 days a month, we would let him claim the child. Not anymore. It doesn't matter if mom's not on benefits. Nobody can claim a child unless they provide 51% of that child's meals. So dad that has the kid on the weekends, whether mom's getting benefits or not, he cannot claim the child. And then Angela's asking, what about the parents who insist the kids are with them 50-50? We'll need to look into those closer. We've only had one of those, I believe, that I know of in all of my time at DFS. So if we have one of those, then we'll have to look at it closer and see what we can do. Most of the time, one parent has the child more than the other. And then again, the question, if a household is recertifying for January, in December, do we apply this policy? And I'm going to find out. I'm going to have to think on that because that's a really good question. And I want to get with Jeannie to make sure that we're looking at this the right way. So I'll let you guys know that even though this policy goes into effect for January, whether we need to start applying it now for January cases or in January for further cases. So I will get back to you guys on that. Okay. Now I will move on to the new narrative. So the narrative will be changed every month. I think Kelly talked about that during the last conference. I wasn't on it, so I'm not exactly sure. But the narrative will be updated every month, and hopefully we won't have many updates. We'll just be changing the date on it. But this is a good opportunity for you guys to send in your suggestions, because if we're updating it every month, then we can add in some of the suggestions that you guys have. So I got quite a few suggestions and some really good suggestions, and some that we were able to incorporate into the new narrative and some that we unfortunately weren't. So it's already out there. Some of you might have already seen it, but some of the changes were that for the employment and training section, we added a box for notes that you could type in. For the interfaces, added in the state supplement. And for the box when you penned a case, the boxes for the dates were made smaller, and the list for items requested was made bigger. So that was a great suggestion, is that we don't need so much room for the dates, the due date and the date received. And then there was a box added underneath the items that were pended, underneath that whole section for notes. That way, inside the list of items requested, you could just list those, and then if you have any other notes you need to add in there, you can put those underneath that box. So those are the changes to the narrative. And keep sending those suggestions in. It's great to have feedback from you guys, and if there's something you like, something you don't like, if something you think needs added, just let us know, and we're happy to listen and implement whatever we can. Okay, back to the questions. Will we notify you on the date it is updated? I'm guessing that means the narrative, and we will try to notify the date it's updated. It's not just one person that does it all, so I will try to be really good about letting you guys know when it's updated and a summary of what changed. Leaving the ones that don't apply empty or NA. We need NAs if something really doesn't apply. Really the only ones that an NA should go in is the power ones if it's not a power case. Everything else there should be something that you can write in there, like liquid resources. That should never be an NA. It should be maybe if there's nothing, then client claims none. Something like that. Most of it though, there shouldn't be any NAs. Any suggestions, can you please email those to me so I don't lose them in this, because some of your guys' comments are going away. So Keely, if you could please email that to me, that'd be great. And then to follow up on the weekend dads, that's a good point. They were able to claim their children, so they were no longer considered ABOTs. Well, since they will not be able to claim their children once they recertify, they will be ABOTs again, maybe, if they're an ABOT. So that will be once they recertify. So as of January 1st, we're not going to change any cases that are already done. As of January 1st, we're going to catch them as they recertify. I hope that answers your question, Corey. Okay. And then the last thing is we had a really good suggestion on the employer statement. We were hearing that sometimes you guys are getting the employer statements back and only, I say it's the first page, but it's the first real page of the 106 with the information that the clients need to fill, or that the employer is supposed to fill out. What we were hearing is that you guys were getting that back with only that first page completed by the client, and it wasn't signed by the employer, so you can't use it. So what we did is we changed it up a little bit. What we did was add at the very top so it says employer statement, and then underneath there, so hopefully it's a little bit, they can see it a little bit better, it sticks out a little bit more, is the sentences that say, well, the most important one that says, this form is completed by the employer or designee. So we really want it completed by the employer. We really want it signed by the employer. So that part was changed, and then at the end of the first page, we added the signature line, the information that's also on the second page. So the employer's signature, their name and title, the business name, the business address, the business phone number, and the date. So that's on both pages now, and that's because if for some reason they only fill out that first page, at least hopefully you'll get that information and clients will understand that that needs to be filled out by their employer and signed by their employer. And that's the only changes with that. The other suggestion with the employer statement is to print it on 2 pages instead of front and back. That way clients are more likely to be able to tell that it's 2 pages. If it's front and back, they might not turn it over. If it's 2 pages, then they can feel that there's 2 pages in their hand. And that's all I have. I don't see any questions yet. This employer statement, it should be added to the templates today, I hope. And you can go ahead and use the ones you have already if you have some printed, and just use these once you print more.
Okay, I think that's good. We appreciate it, Amy. That's a lot of updates. We understand that. So if you guys had questions along the way that either didn't get answered or you just couldn't type it in for whatever reason, just email one of us. Let us know. You can either email Danita directly or you can email me. I'll make sure that it gets over to her so that we can answer any of those other questions that you might have, because we do know that that was quite a few changes that just went through. Okay, so moving along, just to try to finish up, because I know we're going to be over time just a little bit. I try to keep these to about an hour if we can. We're going to be just a little bit over. I do schedule it for an hour and a half, so I don't feel too bad. But as you may have noticed, I've got a little bit of a cold, so please bear with me if you can't. If I cough into the microphone a little bit, trust me, that's the great thing about a video conference is I can't transmit my my cold through the internet, as far as I know. So one thing that I did want to just kind of address with you guys before we moved along to a little bit of a training that's more of a review than anything else is just to talk about the power interviewing video that I talked about the last video conference. So that power interviewing video is now up and available for any of you to watch. And really, it's just a sample. And again, I want to give a kudos out to Dan Barella and to Elaine Brown, who helped me with the video and basically starred in it. But just wanted to give them the kudos. But what I would like to see happen with this video is just to use it as a little bit of a training, and as much that as a topic of conversation. So if you are looking through this video, I will send out a link to everybody again so that they can have it. But also you can access it through my YouTube page. So if you wanted to look at that, if you went into YouTube, and here's just what it looks like on my screen, if you went into it right now, you would find the power interviewing video right there. You could click on it and view it at any time. What I would like to see, and supervisors, this applies specifically to you, what I would like to see happen is in the next month or two, and I realize that December gets a little sketchy when it comes to having everybody in your office. But I would like you to be able to either view this together, get out some pop and popcorn, view it together, or to have everybody in your office look at it, but then come together and kind of have a group discussion about what types of things make for a good power interview and what types of things really would help people to understand better the power program and how it's going to work for them, and then to send kind of some of those discussion notes back to us, and to myself or to Corinne as it relates to power, just so that we can maybe share some of those with everyone else. So if you have somebody in your office that has a really good best practice that they'd like to share, we'd love to see that. If you'd like to see if there's suggestions or adjustments you'd like to make, we'd like to see that. So you just use this as a discussion point. It can be in a staff meeting or something less formal if you would like, but that's what I would like to see with that training video. So use it as an additional tool. I will send out another email, and I will send out some things specifically to the supervisors as well. Okay, so the last thing we're going to cover today is just a little bit of a review training. So just like Roxanne talked about and Danita addressed as well, we don't want to focus on errors any more than we have to, but we do want to make sure that you guys have the tools in place to make sure that any easily avoidable errors are avoided. So with that being said, we're going to do a quick review on some of the interfaces that we need to check every time we receive an application or recertification. Most of these are going to be very familiar to you. We do have some new workers that have already been through a little bit of this. So just keep that in mind. Jenny just asked how long the video is in referring to the video that came up. It's about 30 minutes long, so it's not a full interview. I've kind of edited it down to the important parts, so it should take you about 30 minutes to watch that. Okay, so I'm going to just jump right into just a little bit of interview guidelines and tips that we'll talk about, and then we're going to just glance at each one of the just each one of the interfaces that we need to check. Sorry, I said interview, I meant interfaces, talking about two different things. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, and we're not going to go into in-depth in every single interface. There are a few changes that I'm going to address. One of those we've already discussed, which is some of the changes to the way we can check the new hire reports, specifically the state new hire report. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That's going to be a change. Everything else will go through fairly quickly. If you would like to have your office have more specific interview training or interface training, I'm sorry, please let me know. But know that this is going to be designed to be kind of a continuing series. So we will be going over an interface overview that just basically is going to touch base on most of the interfaces that we check today. Then starting next year, we have planned to do a little bit more in-depth training, much like we did with the TPQY training a couple of conferences ago, because we want to make sure that not only are you checking the interfaces, but that also that you can go ahead and read any of the information that comes back on those interfaces. So a few just general interface guidelines. One of the first guidelines I'd just like to point out is all interfaces should be checked prior to the interview. Whenever possible, make sure that you take the information that you can, go back and check interfaces, because those are going to guide some of the questions that you ask in the interview. If you wait till after the interview to check interfaces for your clients, you're going to find that there's a lot of questions that you should have asked that you missed. Now, I realize that not every time this is going to be easy to do, especially when it comes to things like a TPQY report that takes 3 days to get back, but maybe you have an expedite client that you need to see right away. Okay, understandable that that may not happen. So if information comes up after the interview on one of these interfaces, you may need to follow up with a mini interview or a follow-up phone call to try to verify any information or to clarify any information that you get off of one of these interfaces. Okay, so the idea is to just pay attention to anything that might be a red flag and to be able to follow up with appropriate questions. Okay, make sure you also put information in the narrative of when each interface was checked and for whom. So that's one of the things that you'll see on the newer version of the narrative, is there's an expanded section for these interfaces. And to be frank and to be honest, one of the reasons that we felt like that needed to be expanded in the narrative was because we were just simply missing things, and it was causing a concern about either errors or misapplied benefits, and we want to make sure those things are correct. So this is just kind of an extra reminder to everybody to make sure that those are checked and to check them at the appropriate times and for the appropriate people. If you don't find anything in the interface, and I know Danita addressed this already, please don't just leave the section blank, put that there's nothing found. That way, anybody that might pick up your case knows that you checked the narrative. If your case gets transferred, something like that, the other worker can see that those interfaces were checked. Those are the purposes of the narrative, and you know that I talk a lot about how useful the narrative is, but that's as it relates to interfaces. We want to make sure that information is contained there. Okay, so I'm going to go through really quickly each one of these interfaces. I don't want to go too much in depth into some of them because, like I said, I do want to make sure that we go over some of these specifically in a training that can address questions on how to read some of these. The first one is the RIS interface. This can be found through Epics, and after your initial login screen, you simply select RIS. You want to check this with every application for vehicle registrations. So we know that all vehicles with a motor are exempt from SNAP, so it becomes really easy to forget the important information that might still be contained on RIS. We do need to run this report and pay special attention to anything out of the ordinary, specifically things like trailers, trailer houses, things that somebody may have and be registered as a vehicle that would still count towards the SNAP asset limit. So make sure you go in and still check this RIS interface for anything like that. If there's nothing that shows up, you just need to put nothing found on the narrative. If there is something, then you could print that out. You need to make sure that you ask the appropriate questions to the client. All of those follow-up things that we talked about. And also keep in mind that even though we're, Roxanne even mentioned that we're still trying to match some of our power regulations to the SNAP policy regarding vehicles that hasn't gone through yet, and we don't know at this point if it will. So make sure that you know that vehicles may still count towards the power limit. So you might want to review the policy on that. There can be an exempt vehicle for a one-parent household, or for a married couple, they may exempt 2 vehicles. But other than that, those vehicles still may count towards the power limit. So anytime you get a power case, it becomes really important to address each one of those vehicles, and those vehicles need to be registered currently. So the RIS interface can also give us information on ID. Okay, so if you forget where it goes, you can look back into this presentation, but you can, right as you log in, select RIS, you go right into the RIS screen. The next one is the BDX and SDX report. So I realize that this is one that we could spend entire session doing a training on. So we're just going to do a general overview again. The interface is found through Epics, so it's right in the Epics screen. In the INME screen, you just select 13, enter a Social Security number. This will come back from Social Security. We need to check this on each application or recertification when there is potential SSI or SDI payments for any household member, and this is going to show that information. So there are walkthroughs if you are not aware of this, and I've found that there's a couple people that did not know this, so I just want to make everybody aware. There are more information on both of these reports found in the appendices of the combined manual. So if you look in Appendix 3 and Appendix 4, both of those will address both the Bendix report and the SDX report, so that you can go and find more information on that, and including some of the codes that you may need to read, because I do know that these reports may come back with some confusing or unknown codes. And again, we're going to do a specific training related to this on how to read it, much like we did with the TPQI report. Okay, so you can go in right through Epics, enter in number 13. It's going to bring up that report. So we're just trying to cruise through and make sure you guys get out of here on time. TPQI, we did do a training on this not too long ago. If you want to have that reviewed, you can actually go back in, and this is another plug for my YouTube channel, trying to get more viewers. It's only for you guys, that YouTube channel, so you shouldn't see any other crazy stuff on there that I haven't put up there. But just know that TPQI training is up there as well. You could go back and review that. Or let me know. We can do something different. Again, it's found very similarly. It takes 3 days to get back from Social Security, but you need to check this on each application or recertification as well. Or at the end of the year when there's a COLA increase, anything with Social Security, if there's a COLA increase, we need to be checking that. Luckily this year, I shouldn't say luckily, that's probably not the best way to put it, but this year there was no COLA increase. So we did not have to go back through and check these for everybody. But in years past, we've often seen this COLA increase, which is the cost of living adjustment that goes on anybody receiving Social Security, disability, or SSI payments. So we would need to go back in and check that with the TPQI report. Okay. Again, you should know how to find this. If not, little screenshot of where it is. Okay. When you go into the TPQI report, remember there's a few different options, and you should be able to find TPQI, hit yes. About 3 days later, that should come back to you. The next reports, we're going to talk about a few of the ones that you can run through the RAVE system as well. Hopefully all of you have been able to access RAVE since the change occurred. It's Citrix and RAVE, so I do know that that's a little bit different. The best way I've found to do that is to make sure that you set a little favorite on your Chrome browser, so that you can just click on that and get you right into the Citrix system. There was a walkthrough that was sent out by our IT guys that showed how to get into it. So if you're having a problem with that, then just let me know. We can follow up, or I can resend that email. Okay, so the EDRS report shows any disqualifications that may have happened through SNAP. or any of the other programs that we manage, and that's a national database. So we do need to check this for each applicant on every application or recertification. It's very simple to do, and so we want to do this because sometimes there is a delay in when somebody might show up on that report. So just because somebody has been on your caseload for a few months doesn't mean that they might not have had a disqualification go through. So this is especially true for anybody moving in out of state. We want to make sure this is checked, but that doesn't mean that those are the only people that we want to check that for. Okay, and so really simple to do. Once you're in this screen, make sure that you go into the EDRS report. All you need to do is click on EDRS up at the top. You can run that by Social Security or name, and that should populate for you. The LEAP, we talked about this earlier, so I'm glad Danita mentioned the fact that we have had a few errors that have come up just because we're not applying the standard utility allowance correctly. So one of the ways that we want to try to avoid that excuse me, is by running this LEAP report. So this interface can be found through Rave. I know you can also run a one through Epics. We're going to talk specifically about the one through Rave today. But you need to check this LEAP on every application or recertification because it's going to show LEAP payments and dates. Now, remember that anytime somebody has received LEAP, it automatically qualifies that household for the standard utility allowance for the next 12 months, regardless of current circumstances. So if someone received LEAP in another city, and then they moved to your current location, and now they no longer have to pay utilities where they are at, if they've received that LEAP in the last 12 months, they still qualify for the standard utility allowance. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're looking at that LEAP screen and applying that standard utility allowance correctly. Okay, and that's one of the main things. The other thing on the LEAP screen is to make sure that you're checking that for each applicant's social security number. Many times you're going to have a couple where one spouse may typically apply for the SNAP benefits, and you may have another spouse that applied for the LEAP program. If you only check it for one, it's not going to show up for the spouse. So you need to make sure that you look at it for each one of those social security numbers of those potential applicants. So just make sure we're doing that as well. So I've got a quick screenshot of it here, pretty easy. You can look by social security number, and it did specify LEAP social security number to let you know that that's searching for the applicant, or by their name, and find that information. A couple of questions that have come up. So Tink asks, if no one in the household is on Social Security, do we need to request a TPQI? And typically, if there's no chance of anybody in that household receiving any type of Social Security benefits, that's not something that we have to run and wait for. But if there's any potential there that they were receiving Social Security payments, we do need to run that, even if it may have been a child in that household. So those are things that we may need to look at. So good question. The next one we'll talk about quickly is ESY4. So hopefully you know how to access that, but you can find that through Epics. When you initially log in, you, instead of entering Epic, you enter ESY4. And you should be checking this at each application or recertification as well. So this shows us two things. Option 1C is going to show unemployment information. So if you have anybody receiving any type of unemployment or may have the potential of receiving unemployment, we need to be checking that screen. So specifically, if somebody just came into your office and they may have just lost a job, changed jobs, whatever, you need to make sure that you're checking that 1C option to see if there's any unemployment information on there. And also make sure you're checking the balances and addressing any potential changes. So if you look at that and you see that somebody only has a balance of $100 left on their unemployment benefit amount, you will need to address that with their client to find out if they're going to receive some sort of extension or if their benefits are going to be exhausted, so that we can use that information for the following months. So if we needed to change their income to zero for the month following because they're going to exhaust their unemployment benefits, we would need to address that. So that's one of those things that sometimes gets missed a little bit. Make sure that we're doing that. We also want to be checking the option 2C, which shows wage history, and review that and look for discrepancies. So I'm going to use a very specific example of a case that came through on our QA that really kind of illuminated this for me a little bit. I believe we had a case where that we had the client that had turned in employer statements many times when the Hey, can you guys hear me again? Hopefully you can. Had a little internet glitch right there. Of course that's going to happen right in the middle, so hopefully you guys can hear me again. Looks like I got a lot of questions of where did I go and technical difficulties, and hopefully we got those taken care of. Okay, so gonna finish up. Hopefully this records just fine. If not, I'll follow up with you guys. So I believe the last thing that I heard, and I got a message with this, is the last thing was talking about multiple employer statements and the ESY4. So I'm just gonna move on to the next part, which is child support. So again, this information can be found through RAVE. With child support, remember, you can check this for not only your custodial parent, which is the CP, but the non-custodial parent. So if you're looking at the child support interface, you can check this for somebody that may be paying child support as well in order to apply deductions. So kind of keep that in mind. The new hire report. So now this is the one I'm going to take just a little bit of time on, and I promise we'll have you out of here by 10:30. Now the new hire report has changed slightly. Now the new hire report can be found in a few different places. So the state new hire report is emailed each month from Annette Jones. So every time you receive this state new hire report, you need to check it against your caseload so that if there's a change on there, you need to act on that change. So if there's an existing client that you have that shows up on this new hire report and you do not have that job or that income listed, you need to send them a notice and pen for information on that new hire. Okay, so this information now also is included in RAVE. So this is one of the things that we talked about earlier, but this has just been added to RAVE. So when you go into there, you can also check this information at any time, and that needs to be checked on every application and recertification as well. Okay. There's also a national new hire report that's sent out from Danita Martinez. So you need to also do the same thing you do with the state new hire report and go through that and check to see if you have a client on your caseload that shows up on that report and act on any changes. Okay. So the change that has happened, you'll see the state new hire report. So you can actually access information two different ways from RAVE. The first one is just by clicking on the new hire tab up in the top, and you can search for somebody by their case ID, the social security, or their name. Now, all of the information since January 2015 is included in here. So all of those old reports have been pushed into the RAVE system, but know that not all of them have a social security number attached. So if you're only searching by social security number, you are going to maybe miss somebody. So for that reason, make sure that you're using ID and name as well. So if you search by social security number and nothing shows up, make sure you look by your case ID or the client's name as well to see if they show up on that report. So case ID if they have an established case, name if it's a new application or something like that. You can also access the information by going up to the reports and the crystal report, run a crystal report, and you can run that actually by your office and caseload just to see that same information that Annette Jones sends out. So that information is you'll be able to get to that quickly. So there's a couple of changes that hopefully will be quality of life improvements for you guys. Okay, the 40 quarters report, this is not a report that we have to run often. So if you have a 40 quarters report that you run and you need some help with that, please call me, let me know. I can help walk you through it or send you some information on it. But this report can be accessed the same way we run a TPQI, except we request a 40 quarters report. And you need to check this anytime you're checking SNAP eligibility of an adult lawful permanent resident who may not meet the 5-year waiting requirement for SNAP or one of the other exemptions for that. So you also need to check circumstances on the 40 quarters report. You may have quarters that can apply to a spouse or a now adult child that may qualify for benefits if they're a lawful permanent resident and haven't met that 5-year waiting period, or one of the other exemptions. Okay. Going back in time a little bit, Thea asked if the new hire report is going to be added to RAVE also. I don't know of any plans to do that right now. If that happens, we'll let you know. But right now, that's only the information from the state new hire report is included in the RAVE report. So that's a good question. So requesting a 40 quarters report, I included information on that. Do know that I've told people this before, you do need the Rosetta Stone to translate the 40 quarters report. So again, if you don't have that, you need more information on that, you have to run one of these reports, let me know. The save information, I've included the link on here how to run a save report. but you need to also check this to verify lawful permanent resident status for any applicants when that might be in question. Okay, and then walking through that, if you've run a save report, should be fairly simple. You would just need to request based on what documentation you receive. Typically, this is going to be the permanent resident card, which is the I-551 or green card. Then you enter in their information, and you should receive a report back on their eligibility status. Okay, so a few questions on this. So going back, so Mary out of Riverton asks if the case number is the case number or the 0600 number for the new hire, and I believe that's based on case number. So those caseload reports apply just like when you look at the new hire report that's emailed out to you. It has a case number listed next to that. Whoever that person is on that new hire report, the rave is going to search for it the same way. So that same information populates there. And then we already answered the question on the national new hire data. And then how many months should we look at the new hire reports? So when you're looking at a new hire report, you may have different information. So really you want to look at any job that may have occurred. If there's a job that shows up on the new hire report that somebody showed up there for January of 2015, it's just one of those reports that we can ask about that employment again. So it's not necessarily if you look at that new hire report and you already know what's happened with that job, you know about that person's employment status, you don't have to go all the way back to January on a new application, but any of those you can address during an interview or any of those questions. As far as ongoing clients, those should be a monthly thing, and they should be addressed whenever something shows up. So I do know that there are cases where you're going to call a client and they may have already lost that job or something has changed, they've moved, but we do need to follow up on any of those changes that occur on those new hire reports. Okay, so I apologize, my cough's kind of coming back a little bit. If you have any other additional questions, please let us know. Hopefully we got through it all with only a few technical difficulties, and we used up all of our time. So again, I'd like to thank Danita and Roxanne for being on with us today. We did bombard you with a lot of information, but the main thing is we do want to make sure that since we may not be on a video call or see each other again through the holidays, that everybody has a happy holiday, a Merry Christmas. Take the time to enjoy it with your family, and we will have another video conference scheduled for next year, and you will see those populated on your calendar just like they have been. So thank you, and that's all we have for you today.